Welcome to the Eden Podcast, where we think again about the Bible on women and men, and we start with a correct understanding of what happened in the Garden of Eden, back in the beginning. Today we'll be hearing from Bruce C.E. Fleming. He's a former academic dean and professor of practical theology. The work of the True 316 Foundation is based on the research of Dr. Joy Fleming, who wrote the book Man and Woman in Biblical Unity, Theology from Genesis 2 to 3. Listeners like you are joining us as members of the True 316 Foundation and support the work to true the verse of Genesis 3:16 and the 7 key passages on women and men. It turns out, when Genesis 3:16 becomes clear, all the other passages become clear too. You can learn more at our website, true316.com. That's TRU316.com. And at the end of this episode, we'll tell you about a special gift we have for new members. And now, enjoy today's episode of the Eden Podcast.
On the last episode of Season 9, titled Joy Story, I interviewed Dr. Joy Fleming as she recounted how God led her to study Genesis chapters 2 and 3 for her doctoral dissertation at the University of Strasbourg, France. If you'd like to get a copy of her dissertation, visit our website at true316.com/shop. After teaching in French-speaking Africa as professor of Old Testament studies, when we returned to the States, she was asked to condense her 407-page dissertation for the average reader. She did, and it appeared as her book, Man and Woman in Biblical Unity, Theology from Genesis 2 to 3. We're serializing that book for Season 10 on the Eden Podcast.
The noun Ezer is found 21 times in the Old Testament. It means help, someone who will come to the aid of another to help them. The word is found twice in Genesis 2. In 16 of the other 19 occurrences of the word in the Old Testament, the help spoken of refers to help which comes from one who is superior. In most cases, the help is God himself. An example of this is the well-known opening to Psalm 121. I will lift up my eyes to the mountains. From whence shall my help come? My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. In those instances where Ezer does not refer to God, it is used of such people as kings who come to the help of another. Someone who is a help is a powerful entity who possesses strength and resources. What is clear from the usage of this Hebrew term is that there is no connotation of inferiority or subordination attached to the word help. Two problems occur in translation. The first is that the word help is expanded into helper in modern versions of Genesis 2:18. The second is that the English word helper does carry a connotation of subordination. It often suggests the idea of someone secondary in rank, an underling, the second in command, someone there to lend a hand to the main or a primary person, as, for example, a kitchen helper, someone less qualified but good enough to be an assistant, though nonetheless subordinate, in fact, inferior. John Calvin developed his theology of womanhood based on the idea that woman was only a helper, and therefore inferior and subordinate. Western Christians have been the beneficiaries of his thought, and that of similar thinkers before and since him. This is unfortunate because the Hebrew text implies nothing of the sort. In fact, a better case could be made from usage that Ezer connotes superiority of rank for the one coming to the rescue. The second Hebrew word kenegdo communicates additional meaning. It is a compound word made up of 3 little Hebrew words. The prefix K signifies like or as. The last letter of the word indicates the pronoun him. These 2 parts of the word mean like him. What is being emphasized is the common nature and essence of the 2 beings, as well as their equality. The middle letters of the word come from the root nagath, which means conspicuous, in front of, opposite to, meaning positioned opposite to the other. This part of the word describes position in the relationship between the man and the woman. It means they will be vis-a-vis, facing one another. Rather than being lined up behind one another, suggesting a rank order, or even side by side, ready to face the world, they are placed where they are conspicuously in view of one another, face to face. When the man looks at the woman, and vice versa, he will see someone like himself. He will not see a passive person like a shadow which moves when he moves, but rather he will see an active person, distinct and separate from himself. They share a common identity without being identical. And so this other one will be like him, that is, not from the animal realm, as all other living beings which God has made, nor deity, as God could be an Ezer, but she will share a common essence with him. What English term might more accurately translate the idea conveyed by Ezer Kenegdo? Colleague and companion have been suggested, though a colleague does not necessarily relate face to face, and a pet is sometimes thought of as a person's companion. Partner avoids connotations of second in command and conveys more closeness than does colleague, but no single English word adequately expresses Ezer Kenegdo. If one understands that help, Ezer, is a term of strength and power, then the expression help corresponding to him, though several words long, may suffice as an accurate translation, for it does faithfully preserve the strength of the woman, Ezer, as well as the mutuality and equality of the woman and man, Kenegdo, implicit in the Hebrew terms. In the end, we must be impressed with the fact that it took two Hebrew words, both rich with meaning, to convey the quality of the relationship God envisioned. Once the Creator declared his intent, the reader would expect him to act directly to bring it about. In fact, verse 21, where the process is initiated, follows very naturally from verse 18. But in between, God's climactic work is postponed, heightening the suspense. God brings creatures to the man, with the reminder that they were made from the ground, with the intent that the man would assign names to them, section B, verse 19. And what the man discovers is precisely what God intended for him to discover. There was not found a help corresponding to him, Ezer Kenegdo, section C, verse 20. It is only after examining the other living occupants of planet Earth that the man fully appreciates the force of God's assessment. It is not good that the man is by himself. Now he is in a position to comprehend the goodness of God and the wonderfulness of his partner. With this interlude accomplished, God initiates the creation of the woman in 3 steps, section B prime, verses 21 and 22. First, he puts the man to sleep. Second, he removes a rib from his side. Third, he builds a woman from the rib. Is it valid to make theological claims for male supremacy based on the part the man played in the woman's creation? Not if one properly understands that the part the man played was nil, and this is emphasized by the form of the text. In section B, God created animals, and the man was assigned an active task. In this corresponding section B prime, God again created woman, but the man was absolutely passive, just as the dust from which he was made was inert, and he was assigned no task. As Phyllis Tribble said, in both episodes, Yahweh alone creates. For the last creation, the Lord God caused a deep sleep, Hebrew word tardama, to fall upon the man. Man has no part in making woman. He is out of it. He exercises no control over her existence. He is neither participant, nor spectator, nor consultant at her birth. Like man, woman owes her life solely to God. For both of them, the origin of life is a divine mystery. After anesthetizing the man, God takes the raw material from which the woman will be made, the rib of the man. The material of the creation of the woman underlines the common humanity of woman and man. Though they are male and female, greater and more important than the difference is what they share in their humanness. Mary Evans explains, the point being made is not the difference between male and female, but their relatedness. Descent from one ancestor establishes both the absolute unity of humanity and the identical substance of both male and female in a way that separate creations from dust could not have done. Can a case be made that the man has greater importance in some way because the woman was made from his rib? Evans continues, woman is created from man's rib, but it is important to note that it was the direct creative act of God in building up the woman that gave her her being, not the rib itself. She is taken from man, but her first and primal contact is with her Maker. Woman herself knew God before she knew her counterpart, the man. It is wrong to say that woman owes all her existence to man, just as it would be wrong to say that the man owes all his existence to dust and is therefore subordinate to it. Both man and woman are portrayed as created directly by an individual and purposeful act of the Creator. The final step of creating is for the Lord to process the material. Both dust and a rib clearly require something more to produce the end products, the man and the woman. In the first case, God forms, yatsar, the man from the dust. In the second case, he builds, bana, the rib, into the woman. The man and the woman share a common material, yet their workmanship differs. Each requires the hand craftsmanship of the Creator. As yatsar is suggestive of the forming of a potter, so bana evokes the picture of an architect, the verb being used for the building of cities, houses, and temples. At this point, we raise an issue brought up by some. Is it right to claim that the woman was made for the man? God doesn't create her as a present for the man. He makes someone else who will be with him. The woman was made for the man only in the sense that at creation her presence would dispel his aloneness. This was because the man was the one who was by himself at the outset. Again, this is due to God creating sequentially. It is inappropriate to draw the inference that the woman was made to serve the man. She was not a servant. She was a companion and regent over the earth. As section C, verse 20, concluded on a sorrowful note, for the man was and remained partnerless, section A', verses 23 and 24, opens with a contrasting explosion of joy from the man, a poetic song of celebration. The words of verse 23 form two lines in Hebrew, each one intricately constructed. The first line is comprised of three pairs of words which sound like three bursts of emotion. First pair, this one, at last. Second pair, bone from my bone. Third pair, flesh from my flesh. The second line contains a play on words and is designed in a chiastic structure. A, this one. B, shall be called. C, woman. D, because. C', from man. B', was taken. A', this one. The man's exuberant response expresses his wonder that the missing person, that partner corresponding to himself, is now present. Though he has never seen her before, his recognition is instant. This one is woman, Isha, for she was taken out of man, Ish. The structure of the text emphasizes similarities between section B and section B'. However, it also highlights an important difference. In the first case, the man names the animals. In the second case, the man describes the woman as Isha. Does the man here name the woman as he had the animals? There are those who claim that he did, but 5 facts refute such a misperception of the text. 1. At this time, the man is not giving the woman a name. Neither Ish nor Isha are proper nouns or names. He is simply asserting, this one is a female version of what I am. In his statement, he is recognizing that she is of the same essence as he, and he rejoices. 2. When an official act of naming takes place in Genesis, there is a distinctive formula that is followed. It includes the specific Hebrew verb kara, call, followed by the Hebrew noun shem, name. This formula is followed in Genesis 2:19 and 20, where the man names the animals. It appears in 3:20, where the man names, or more correctly renames, Eve. It is employed in 5:2 when God names the two of them Adam. And the formula appears in 4:17, 25, 26, Genesis 26:18 twice, and so on. But in 2:23, the formula is absent. The noun Shem does not appear. 3. Furthermore, God never instructed the man to name the woman. The phrase, to see what he would call her, present at verse 19, is absent in verse 23. For the man to exercise sovereignty over the woman as he did over the animals would have been inappropriate. 4. Naming the woman would also have been unnecessary, for God had already given them both the name Adam at creation, which is referenced in Genesis 5:2. One could say they were to be thought of as Mr. and Mrs. Adam. 5. After the fall, the man does presume to name his wife Eve, using the technical naming formula in 3:20. So he apparently did not view his description of her as Isha to be an exercise in naming or an exercise of sovereignty. Genesis 2:24, the last verse of episode C, begins with the word therefore and serves as a commentary on marriage. The three verbs of the verse describe and define marriage in a nonspecific and transcultural way, yet distinct parameters are set. Three actions comprise the basic and essential elements constituting marriage, which is in turn the foundation stone of human society. First, the man is the one who is the abandoner. He is the one who forsakes or leaves, Hebrew azav, his own family unit. Such abandoning or desertion of his father and mother is observed and recognized by others. Reciprocal action on the woman's part is not required. Second, the man cleaves, clings, or keeps close. The Hebrew word is dabak, to his woman. The verb expresses strong attachment and personal loyalty and commitment. The same verb is used in Ruth 1:14, where Ruth clung to her mother-in-law. Not wanting to part, Ruth adopted the people of Israel, her mother-in-law's people, as her own. Here, the man's devotion, affection, and allegiance changes from two parents to one woman. He becomes loyal to her above all others. The expression, his woman, is not to imply possession or ownership, but rather expresses the exclusivity of the marriage commitment. The loyalty and strong emotional attachment of marriage are designed exclusively for one man and one woman. The final action involves both the man and the woman who in concert become one flesh. What had been one became two, the creation of the woman. Now in marriage, what was formerly two becomes one. Flesh emphasizes the physical. One, the oneness or unity. The final act is physical union which consummates the marriage. What is striking about verse 24 is the dramatic contrast between its provision and the practices of both Hebrew culture and contemporary culture, where the parents or the father give away the bride. Gilbert Bilezikian writes, "Singularly, nothing is said of the bride's relationship with her own parents. She seems to be a free agent in command of her own life. In the verse, the woman represents the stable point of reference. It is the man who moves toward her after leaving his parents. He attaches himself to the woman. She is not appended to his life. He is the one who adds his life to hers as he cleaves to her." In summary, God completes the work of creation during episode C. And the pinnacle of creation is woman. As the episode started out, the man was alone in the universe, the only human being alive. God's striking evaluation of this situation was that it was not good. By announcing ahead of time his intention to undertake such a special creation, God adds importance to the act and perhaps the equivalent of a drum roll to the anticipation. Compare Genesis 1:26. God describes her as Ezer Kenegdo. These two terms are rich with meaning, describing both the woman and the relationship the woman and the man share. Ezer is often used of God, maker of heaven and earth, who is our help. Ezer speaks of the woman's strength. She will be a powerful entity possessing strength and resources. Kenegdo means like him and face to face, corresponding to him. The two genders of human being are not identical, like clones, but share a common entity. They are both human, and their likeness is emphasized over their minor differences. Facing one another, their standing is equal before each other and before God. They are partners and co-laborers together. God could have made the two humans simultaneously from dust, but God chose instead to make one from the other, underlining their common essence. He could not have made the point more effectively, and marriage underscores this fact once again. God took one and made two. In marriage, two join to become one. Episode D, At Home in Eden, Genesis 2:25. The creation is now complete. God has made a beautiful world. There is harmony in all realms. Verse 25 sums up the situation regarding the man and the woman. They were naked and not ashamed. Here we pause to observe what God instituted before sin entered the picture. Bilezikian notes that in all of Genesis 1 and 2, only two references are made to human relationships that involve authority. First, God is sovereign over humans in all that he commands and instructs, and he prohibits one tree from consumption. This is not to trap or trip up the man and the woman. Rather, it serves a positive function, for it is a visible reminder of their dependence on their Creator. By their obedience, they could acknowledge his governing right in their lives. By their disobedience, they would declare their independence from God. The other authority structure is also clearly spelled out. God tells man and woman to subdue the earth and to have dominion over its animal inhabitants and all the earth, Genesis 1:26. The authority existing and mandated was diagrammed by Bilezikian in this way: God at the top, in the middle, man and woman, below them, nature. Conspicuously absent in Genesis 1 and 2 is any reference to divine prescriptions for man to exercise authority over woman. Due to the importance of its implications, had such an authority structure been part of the creation design, it would have received clear definition along with the two other authority mandates. The total absence of such a commission indicates that it was not part of God's intent. Only God was in authority over Adam and Eve. Neither of them had the right to usurp divine prerogatives by assuming authority over each other. Any teaching that inserts an authority structure between Adam and Eve in God's creation design is to be firmly rejected, since it is not founded on the biblical text. The two partners complement one another. Their relationship is characterized by mutuality, as they live harmoniously with each other, and each lives in communion with the Creator, the superior of them both. This could be pictured as a triangle, with God at the top point, and with the man and the woman on the bottom line at either end. Arrows go down from God to the humans because he rules over them. Additional arrows go back and forth between the man and the woman, who interact with one another as co-regents of the created realm.
Thanks for listening to the Eden Podcast, brought to you by the members of the True 316 Foundation. Research into the Old and New Testaments by Dr. Joy Fleming and Reverend Bruce C.E. Fleming forms the base of all our work. Joy is a former Old Testament professor and is a practicing licensed psychologist. Bruce is the author of the Eden Book series, which starts with Book 1, the Book of Eden, Genesis 2-3. We invite you to become a donor member of the True 316 Foundation, as together we seek to true the verse of Genesis 3:16 and related passages. When you become a member, we'll send you an autographed copy of the Book of Eden. Sign up today by going to true316.com/member. That's TRU316.com/member.